It's time once again for Brilliant Exchanges, a segment where we look at some beautiful knockouts and knockdowns from a legendary fighter, breaking down just how they did it. Today we're covering Vasily High-Tech Lomachenko. Before we begin, it's important to remember that Lomachenko is incredibly fond of breaking down and overwhelming an opponent's defenses over time, and that strategy helped contribute to many of these stoppages. Alright, let's get to it. The first KO we'll take a look at is a great example of the Matrix's ability to manipulate his opponent's positioning. Roman Rocky Martinez entered the ring with a fantastic record and enjoying a height and reach advantage. But Lomachenko quickly used his timing, speed, and volume to even the odds. By the 5th round, Martinez was biting on every single movement that Vasily made, meaning that Lomachenko could easily put Martinez out of position with feints that only vaguely resembled real punches. These slight, non-committal movements not only saved Lomachenko energy, but kept him perfectly balanced so that he could follow up with a real shot immediately upon spotting an opening. Lomachenko moved Martinez back by faking a high-low 1-2 combination. He next built on this setup, reversing the punch order to feint to Martinez's body, then following up with a real rear hook to the head. A few more fake jabs to muddy the waters even more, and Lomachenko landed the exact same sequence again. Martinez was now in full-on survival mode, and Lomachenko only needed to wave his arm around like a child playing Harry Potter to create a massive overreaction. Martinez ducked, weaved, and stepped out to escape what he must have thought was a hook to the head. Instead, he had placed his chin in the perfect position for Lomachenko's rear uppercut. Martinez's head snapped back, and Lomachenko finished with a beautifully timed lead hook. And that's the end of that chapter. Lomachenko's knockout of Anthony Krala was another great example of how he uses feints and throwaway punches to set up his knockouts. Once Lomachenko noticed that Krala was responding to every feint and punch by ducking, he used a throwaway shot to set up a committed, perfectly aimed lead hook. The takeaway is that it's much easier to time a full power shot when you already have a good idea where the target will be beforehand. The next sequence is from Lomachenko's bout with Gabriel Rodriguez, and this knockout has a really cool mix of concepts to look at. In the 9th, Lomachenko casually threw a non-committed 1-2 combination, but he actually never intended to land, only to move himself offline so he could angle in a strong hook to the body. A few punches later, Rodriguez fired back with the lead hook. And here we see an example of how meticulous Lomachenko is about his form. Vasily's tight, well-structured hook easily reached his target before Rodriguez's wider hook. This is what people mean when they use the term beat to the punch. Finally, Lomachenko finished by shuffling forward into a hard lead straight. This concept is very reminiscent of Manny Pacquiao, who would often use long-range footwork to set up short-range punches, adding a lot more power to the blow than would usually be expected. This next knockout showcases a tactic I talked about in one of my very first videos on this channel, how Lomachenko loves to turn his punches into frames in order to block his opponent's vision. And Lomachenko definitely needed every tool in his toolbox against Jorge Linares, who in this very same fight became the first man to ever knock Lomachenko down. But Loma's reaction was not to ease off the gas. Instead, he stomped down on the accelerator. In the middle of an intense exchange, Lomachenko feinted a jab and then framed his forearm against Linares' guard. He did not remove this cover until his follow-up punch was already on its way. Linares knew something was coming, but not what. Probably expecting a straight, he tightened his guard. But this incorrect split-second reaction turned out to be a fatal mistake. Rather than prevent a straight, tightening his guard opened a path up for a fight-ending blow to the liver. And if you go just a few punches back, Lomachenko had used another frame to set up a sneaky uppercut. This is just such a common tactic for him, it's pretty much built into his style. Still, Linares deserves a lot of credit for putting on such an incredible performance. I definitely recommend everyone check this match out. It's really incredible and one of my favorites. It's hard to believe we're at the 6th fight and I still haven't mentioned Lomachenko's footwork, but these last two should fix that. It's fairly common knowledge that for a southpaw, stepping to the right is a great tool for aligning the left power hand. But in his bout against Miguel Mariaga, Lomachenko demonstrated how it's also a great tool for cutting off the ring. Lomachenko slipped a jab and shuffled deep outside to throw across. Mariaga tried to hook and pivot out. However, Lomachenko's lead foot blocked his escape, throwing Mariaga completely off balance. Caught in such a terrible position, all it took was a short, tight cross from Lomachenko to send him flying. Mariaga was on his feet in moments, but that didn't stop Lomachenko from piling on even more pressure. Near the end of the round, Mariaga was weaving and circling, desperately trying to regain center ring. But once again, Lomachenko's lead foot positioning allowed no escape. Mariaga actually tripped over his own feet trying to get out of the corner. The Matrix capitalized immediately to score yet another knockdown. And although Mariaga again beat the count, his corner had seen enough and threw in the towel. Our last highlight is unusual because it's against another southpaw, Jorge Pedraza. But that didn't stop Lomachenko from using his incredible footwork to create sharp angles and score a knockdown. In the 11th, Lomachenko landed some tight, Duran-like uppercuts from close range, then faded back. Pedraza decided to pursue, but Lomachenko linear shifted. Having forced his opponent completely out of position, Lomachenko landed a hard left hook as Pedraza tried to turn to catch up. He then smothered his guard to switch back to southpaw. He stabbed in an uppercut that cracked the guard before following up from the side. Before he could counter, Lomachenko used two throwaway punches to frame and jam Pedraza's offense once again. Pedraza looked to muscle Lomachenko back, but High Tech disengaged, stepping back to orthodox to land an unexpected lead uppercut that twisted Pedraza's head back to look up at the ceiling. He then followed with a tearing rear hook to the body. Whether from that punch or the next two, Pedraza had had enough and dropped to his knee. Dazed but not done, he survived the count and continued on aggressively with a strong lead hook. But another beautiful display of positioning, framing, and body work from Lomachenko did the trick again. Pedraza went down swinging. And to his credit, he beat the count again, then managed to survive the next and final round, finishing the fight on his feet. Vasily Lomachenko is a unique blend of creative tactics and techniques, born from decades of honing both mental and physical skills and strung together into one well-crafted, cohesive style. It's from that combination of strategy, creativity, and discipline that we see some of the most brilliant exchanges. If you'd like to learn more about the techniques that Lomachenko and others use to set up skillful knockouts, you can check out my books on footwork, defense, and power, linked in the description below. From the Modern Martial Artist, this has been David Christian, wishing you happy training.